Whether you've been into watches for a while or you are new to this game, it can be very easy to get caught up in the hype of something, which means that you can make rash decisions on the spot.
Shut up and take my money!
You might get persuaded by an article or a person or a video you've just watched. Now, it's absolutely okay to make mistakes or have regrets when it comes to buying a watch, but I am here today to help you avoid that from happening. Let's take a look at some watches you may want to avoid on your watch collecting journey. The first category is fake or replica watches. Now, it may sound obvious for me to bring this up, however, you'd be surprised at how easily people can fall for this. Not everyone is savvy in knowing if a particular watch is genuine or not. There are many ways to get tricked, so here are some tips to avoid this happening to you. The price of a watch is always a big giveaway. If you, for example, are buying a certain watch and it's listed at a price far lower than what you would expect, this can be a red flag. Always do your research on how much a watch you are buying should cost new and how much it should roughly cost as second-hand. If you are buying a watch and the prices are significantly cheaper than the prices you found in your research, then this can be a sign that something is off. The watch might be damaged, it might have real and fake parts, it might be stolen, which means that somebody is trying to make a quick buck from you. And I'll state the obvious here, please don't be buying watches out of the back of a van, or from shady characters, or from an online website that doesn't have any reviews or doesn't look quite right. When it comes to replica watches, a lot of the things I've just mentioned are exactly the same. Replica watches are made to look like the real thing, although they're not. Scarily enough, some replica watches are incredibly good and they are only getting better. They use the same materials, the same production techniques, and even sometimes the same machines. Which means you can only realistically know it's real by looking at the watch at a macro level or opening up the back to inspect the movement. Again, a replica watch is made for the purpose to be more affordable, so its price will give it away. Replica watches can range from a $50 Rolex you find in a market in Thailand, all the way up to a $500, $600 high-end replica. Now let's get on to the main reason I think most people buy a replica watch in the first place. And that is simply because they know they are replicas and they can't afford the real thing just yet. Still, they want to experience the watch in question or simply show off the watch to whoever they're seeking validation from. It could be friends, co-workers, it could even be family members. What I would say to these people or anyone considering buying a replica watch is that you will never truly feel accomplished when you buy that watch and put it on your wrist. There is always a slightly hollow or shallow feeling that comes from looking at something that you haven't quite earned. It's like cheating in a game. You've won, you've beat everyone, but something feels a little bit off. You haven't experienced hardship, you haven't undergone frustration in trying to accomplish your goal. Typical human psychology comes into play here, and this applies to a wide variety of things in life. I guess what I'm trying to say here is if you can't afford a $15,000 Rolex Submariner, for example, then that's okay. You don't need a watch like this to justify who you are as a person. But what you can do is work hard towards achieving that watch. Set it as your goal. Step by step, you'll get there eventually. And when you do, that feeling of accomplishment will be real and yours only. And as for your current watch, you'll feel much better buying a well-made, uniquely designed watch from a micro brand or a similar brand. You'll feel good about yourself, and believe it or not, these watches still get lots of compliments. Take my Oris Aquis for example. It's by no means my most expensive watch, however it still gets lots of compliments here and there. Next, we move to the other end of the spectrum for this next category, and that is the watch that breaks the bank. It's hard to know, especially in today's world with credit cards, loans, etc., whether you can really afford something. Maybe you can afford to buy the watch you want in one go, but that means spending most of your savings. Maybe you want to buy a watch but spread the cost over 5 years. It's really important here that whichever route you decide to go down, that you can afford to pay for the watch without it affecting the livelihood of yourself or others that may depend on you. Do family or friends depend on you? Do you need a rainy day fund? Perhaps if you're self-employed, for example. Do you need money for something more important, say for a car, or work on the house, or medicine? The last thing you want to do is put yourself under any undue stress simply for something that tells the time. Horology should be a hobby, not an obsession that gets in the way of you living your life. Now, let's move on to fashion watches. One of my first watches was a fashion watch from a well-known clothing brand. It cost me around $150 and looked so good, on the websites anyway. When it arrived, it was very light, almost hollow feeling and jingly like a set of keys. This was because the bracelet was low quality and the materials in general were not up to scratch. I essentially bought the watch because it was shiny. Maybe I'm a crow or something. We've all made mistakes, but please try to learn from mine. Fashion watches are designed to look good from a distance and part you with your money. There is often little attempt from these brands to make a good quality timepiece. You might think, oh wow, $150 for a watch that looks like that is actually quite good. No, it's never good. Trust me. That money could be better spent on something like a Casio, a Seiko, or an Orient. Just do your research, save your money, and you'll find you'll fall in love with some good quality timepieces that will still be within your budget. Okay, let's move on to the next category, and that is hype gone wrong. Hype is good sometimes. It's fun. Everyone wants the same thing, and once you buy that thing, you can talk about that thing with everybody else who has the same thing as you. It's a great feeling. It's like being back at school and you all have the same Pokemon card. Ah, good times. Anyway, hype can be dangerous. It can make you buy a watch that you don't actually want. Here's an example. I very nearly bought a Moonswatch. I was in the queue in central London and I didn't think I'd make it inside the shop. But as luck would have it, a few people left the queue, which means I managed to get inside. I held the watch and did some inspecting, and I don't know why, but in that moment I just suddenly decided to not buy the watch. It's almost like the little angel on my shoulder was saying to me, just wait, give it a couple months and see if you do want the watch. Months after the release, I met my friend who had one on. Again, very cool watch, and I loved the collaboration, but I knew in that instant that I'd made the right choice. It just wasn't something I really wanted in the end. Sometimes as a watch enthusiast, it feels like you need to own a watch to be considered a true horologist, when in truth, this is never the case. What this hobby is really about is buying watches you really want to own for yourself without any outside influence. Don't get me wrong, outside influence is a big part of horology. Hey, I wouldn't have bought an Oris Aquis if I hadn't seen a video about it. However, when a watch is hyped up so much, sometimes it's too good to be true. You may disagree with some of the points raised in this video, and that's absolutely okay. You should buy watches that you love above all else. And part of the fun is making mistakes and learning how certain watches make us feel once we own them. I'm a firm believer that for every watch you own, you get one step closer to owning your perfect watch. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.